What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video, where today we were treated to a second live stream from the devs this week, all about the Year 8 Season 2 PTS that is actually available for download right now as it goes live tomorrow. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let's get straight into it. So they actually started it off by talking about the current state of the game, and just with a little bit of update with issues that they've seen amongst the community, and they wanted to kind of put our minds at rest a little bit that they're working on these things. But they did want to point out that escalation tokens are not going to be reset at the end of the season, which was the original intention, that everyone would get put back to 0. But they've changed their mind on that. They just think it's not worth doing. There's no real reason to do it. So they've gone back on that. So your tokens will be safe when the season ends. They also wanted to talk about the risk factor that you get for hosting an escalation. Now, obviously, at the moment, it's extremely unbalanced. The risk reward for the leader is just really bad in comparison to the people that get 25 tokens at tier 10 for putting absolutely nothing in. And they said that they want to start, and this is going to be at the start of next season, so this is definitely coming at the start of next season, that the cost of entry is going to be looked at and likely lowered. It's so that then it's easier for players to get up the levels. They also want it to be less punishing if you fail. So therefore, you know, if you fail, all your tokens as the leader are not just going to be lost, and you know, that's it. But they also want to give the host, who's taking all of the risk, the most reward. So that's kind of the first step. Obviously, there's still a bit of imbalance there because people who put nothing in still get a reward. So I assume that 25 reward at tier 10 is still going to be a thing. So, you know, the shenanigans that are going on will likely still happen a little bit, but hopefully it will calm the waters, because of right now, it's really hard to get a group where people aren't playing hot potato with leader or just leaving the group straight away. They then quickly talked about the PTS build and said it's an extremely early build, so don't take everything gospel. And also there will be some missing assets and some, you know, some bugs and stuff in there that they do already know about, but it's because it's a very early build. But they want to put it in our hands as soon as possible because the sheer amount of changes that are coming, so they can get as much feedback that hopefully they can get crammed in to the actual launch. Some stuff will show as TBD because it's just not implemented in the PTS yet. And then they went on after that to talk about crossplay. Now, they didn't necessarily say anything about crossplay, just that it's being worked on, and there's a number of scenarios that they need to work on when it comes to crossplay. Things like clan access, if people turn crossplay off but yet they've joined a clan on another platform, how's all that work, and things like that. So they said it is coming along nicely, but it's not quite ready. And then they moved on to the gameplay, which you can see just here. You can see Leo's got control of the character, and the season is going to be called Into the Dark. The hyenas are going to be the main featured enemy this season, and it's going to be focused on going into the DZ. Yes, that's right, into the Dark Zone. But they've made some changes to the Dark Zone to kind of accommodate everybody who might not necessarily like PvP, or might just like PvE, or might like PvEVP, all of the different scenarios. And they did say these scenarios so far are just for this season, but if the community likes it enough, they will consider letting it stay, because it's quite a substantial change to the Dark Zone, considering one variant of it is completely PvE. So here you can see the PTS version that they've got running of the world map, and you can see there are some brand new icons on here. DZ South is the same DZ as we already know. Everything's running rampant in there, everything's included. You can just go in and throw your very best at it. Your expertise is in there, your SHD score is in there, everything is going wild in that one. But then at the top left, that new icon there is no SHD score is in there at all, and no expertise is in there as well. So to try and tone it all down and give a thorough experience when it comes to veteran players and to newer players as well. And then over on the east side, the green symbol is the brand new PvE Dark Zone, where you cannot go rogue and you cannot shoot other players. There was a load of tips about that and a load of information, and I'll get into them in just a moment. But they also said that these zones will rotate. It looks like they'll rotate once a week, so I'm guessing that will be Tuesday morning reset with everything else when that kind of rotates. But they've also updated the vendors which are associated with each of these dark zones. So this was the DZ East vendor, and as you can see, we've still got exotic caches, but we've got recalibration caches in there for 90 credits and optimization credits in there for 130 credits. Now, Leo did tell us what's going to be available in the other vendors because that's a little bit more spicy. I'm going to find the clip and I'll let that play out.
But you guys are going to be able to experiment tomorrow, to try out tomorrow. So for the East Dark Zones, is recalibration cache for 90 DZ currency and optimization for 130, these two that you're seeing. For the West, we have exotic component caches for 160 and reconstructed caches for 320. So I know exotic components are right now an important thing for the community. And this is South, we have prototype core caches for 170 and prototype caches for 400 DZ currency.
All right, so that's really interesting because not just exotic caches, they're actual exotic component caches, which gives 2. Same when it comes with the prototype core cache as well, that gives 2. Although there is going to be a prototype gear cache available. And what they said is that's going to be the best prototype cache that we can get in the game. And although it's going to have the entire pool of gear available to that cache, much like the one in the vendor for 5 coins, this one will have a much higher chance at rolling maximum, therefore giving the DZ risk reward all of a sudden a bit of an edge when it comes to certain gear, and especially those how easy it's going to be in the DZ to get some of these credits so you can get some exotics a different way. Don't forget, you can also open the chests in the DZ for a chance at exotic components as well. Is this going to be enough to drive people back into the DZ? I don't know, but let me know what you think. I know a lot of PvP players at this point were shouting, well, you're taking something away from PvPers, and I think the idea with this was to be able to get people into the DZ, although not a true DZ, to experience it and to be able to take part, but not really have the risk of being, slayed down by somebody when you're trying to extract. Now, coming to say that, in the actual DZs where you could get, go rogue and do PvP, they had a 200%, I think it was, bonus on the DZ credits that you did get and extract. So making it much more valuable to go into the PvP one because you get a chance at getting much higher credits, which then you can spend on these new caches. And I think that's kind of the draw that they were trying to go for. Next up, they skipped over to season modifiers for a little bit, and then they did go back to other DC information in a minute, so I'll cover it in the same order. But this is our brand new global modifier that you can see here at the top, cleaning up the streets. And it's all to do with what you extract from the new PvE Dark Zone. So you can see here, we've got these sample canisters. And when you do activities in the new PvE DZ, you will collect these canisters. And then the more canisters that you've got and the bigger your sample size, the bigger your bonus that you're going to get. Now, all these bonuses are flexible as of right now. They might not be final values. They look pretty high to me off first glance. So you can see here, we've got 50% max range, 50% weapon handling, 50% magazine size, 50% damage to armor, and 50% rate of fire. And that's not the only bonuses that we are obviously going to get, because we've also got active modifiers that are now going to be twofold, and the passive modifiers as well, which they've trimmed down to just 9 for this upcoming season. You are able to buy sample canisters here. You can see trading 10 sample canisters for the currency, which will aid your progression as well with the new global modifier. And that's the same vendor where currently we buy passive modifiers in this current season. But Alex did say this screen's broken. This is probably not what you're going to see here in the final build. And if you're wondering why sample canisters all of a sudden, that's actually for something else that you'll see when they get into the dark zone a little bit later on. So the sample canisters that he has collected allows him to get munitions. And as you can see here at the bottom right hand side, high quality munitions grant 40% max range. Then you can see here when you get to sample size of 60, you get weapon handling, 150, you get magazine size, 400, you get damage to armor, 15, you get to 600, which we talked about before. You can see that just above in the main description. There's just a lot of text on these, and they did say that this is going to get cleaned up when it comes to the actual live version. Head over to the dark zone, get yourself some sample canisters, and then come back and trade them in for the munitions that you can get here to then increase the damage that you're going to do with your global modifier. So then we got a very quick glimpse at the actual active modifiers, Vicarious being the first one. So you can see here on activation, enemies and allies within 15 meters of you gain separate stacking effects for the next 35 seconds. Allies receive 20% incoming repairs per stack. Enemies take 20% extra damage from skills per stack. And they're actually leaning into skills quite heavily this season, especially when you're going to see the gear in just a moment. The number of stacks is equal to the total number of allies and enemies in the radius when Vicarious is activated. You also gain 20% skill efficiency for 35 seconds with a 180 second cooldown. But then we have got the surge effect that we get when we collect our sample canisters, which when we're collecting them, we get extra damage from the global modifiers. And you can see here with this one, it automatically consumes 5 sample canisters on activation to improve its effects. Skill efficiency increases to 40%. Enemies and allies within 10 meters of your active skills are also affected and count towards a total of numbers and stacks. And in the PvE dark zone, the toxicity is reduced by 50% on activation. And you'll understand what I mean by toxicity just a little bit later. The next one was Panoma. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we actually got to see the sample canister surge effect for this one. But you can see here in the description, it's a hefty description, but it says for 30 seconds, your weapon swap speed increases by 50% and weapon kills grant 1 of 3 stacking bonuses depending on the type of weapon used. These bonuses are capped at 10 stacks each, and each kill increases the corresponding bonus stack by 1. So we get Inhale for marksman rifles and pistols. So kills grant 1 stack of headshot damage at 5% and accuracy at 2.5%. Then we've got assault rifles and LMGs for the one called Hold. Kills grant 1 stack of crit chance and 2.5% stability, which is a bit of a bummer. These are the most used guns and archetypes of weapons in the game, and they're getting chance and stability. I would have much preferred chance and damage, perhaps, crit hit damage potentially, but I guess we'll see how that plays out. Exhale for shotguns and SMGs, and they get crit damage and reload speed. So really, it does sound like when it comes to this global modifier, the assault rifles and LMGs are getting the rough end of the stick. It has got surge effects here, so I guess maybe it's just in the wrong section, and it should be further down, but it says if available, it automatically consumes 4 sample containers on activation to improve its effects. The maximum stacks for each bonus is increased to 20. Headshot kills will grant 3 stacks of Inhale for marksman rifles. Kills within 5 seconds of the previous kill grant 3 stacks of hold, and kills at range of 7 meters or less grant 3 stacks of exhale for these shotguns and SMGs. If you're in the PvE DZ, toxicity is reduced by 20% when the surge effect is activated. So it is going to be important when you're in the PvE DZ to be using the global modifier so that you can last and survive in there just that little bit longer. But it really does give the indication that you are going to have to go into the DZ this season a lot, and I'm talking about the PvE DZ a lot, so that you're able to collect these new canisters that you need so that you can level up your global modifier, and also the sample containers, just so that you can use the global modifier and get the surge effects. Now, Leo read out the next one for Invincible because the description wasn't there, so I'll let him do that.
In the PTS, we're gonna have in the patch notes, we're gonna have everything. For example, just to go through Invincible, because we don't have a description, and I noticed this on live showing that is not pre-recorded. On activation, Invincible fully heals the agent and repairs their armor for a limited time. The agent gains very high damage reduction. Damage taken during this window is stored, then applied back to the agent when the effect ends. While active and while enemies are in front of the agent, Invincible also grants 20% movement speed, 5% armor on kill, which converts into bonus armors for Invincible's remaining duration. So, and 25% damage to targets out of cover. When Invincible ends, it enters a cooldown period of 180 seconds, so 3 minutes, and stored damage is applied back to the agent. Any bonus armor gaining through the modifier is removed. So I'm going through the description.
So that one actually sounds pretty good. I actually like the sounds of that one. It reminds me of the old Eagle Bearer talent and things like that. But the surge effect we can already see here. Invincible automatically consumes 5 sample canisters, again needing more sample canisters on activation to improve its effects. Bonus armor on kill is increased to 10%, and bonus armor persists for 60 seconds after Invincible ends. Damage to target out of cover increases to 25%, and you only take 100% of the damage when Invincible ends. In the PvE Dark Zone, the toxicity is reduced by 50% on activation. So yeah, these modifiers do sound interesting, and they're way more simple than it's been this season. So then we got the passive modifiers, which you can see, only 9, starting off with the top one, which is to do with gadgets. We've got cartridge belt. Your maximum capacity for sample containers is increased to 50. When this modifier is unequipped, any sample containers in excess of your regular capacity are lost. This one's going to be really good for collecting them if you're looking to stack up. Next up, we've got immune response. So after using an armor kit, damage you take is reduced by 20% for 30 seconds. In the PvE DZ, you suffer no negative effects from toxicity in that same duration. And again, the toxicity will make more sense in just a moment. Next up, we've got Surge Drive, and thank you so much to Leo for tabbing through these while Alex was talking. We've got the cost of activating any active modifier's surge effects is reduced by 1 sample container. In the PvE DZ, this cost is further reduced by 1 sample, making it really cheap. So that's 3 really good ones if you want to be essentially gathering up more sample canisters. I do wonder if there's a cap on them or not. And then obviously the use of them is much cheaper as well. Now we're down into the resistances. The toxicity accumulation from all sources is reduced by 50%, and I think that could come in handy as well. Next up, we've got Spark and Flame. So in the PvE DZ, weapon damage is increased by 2% for each 10% status effects. Now, I'm not sure if that's the status effects that we have on our build, or if that's actually something to do with the toxicity in there and you're receiving the status effect, whether it's wording or not. But yeah, that will be interesting. Maybe we're going to be going status effect weapon damage hybrid builds. That's going to be the most effective into this new PvE DZ. Next up, we got Sand and Stone. So in the PvE DZ, increase armor by 50k for each 10% hazard protection. So you know the backfire people are going to love that. Then down into the offensive section, after every 5th kill, all of your shots for the next 5 seconds apply poison for 2 seconds. Next up, we got Contagious. So you gain Contagious when you get within 7 meters of an enemy. Contagious transfers to them. When that enemy dies, they transfer Contagious to the closest ally within 7 meters. If there's no one there to transfer the Contagious to, it reverts to you instead. Contagious has no effect on you, but enemies with Contagious take 50% more damage from all sources. That sounds awesome. And then next up, we've got Unfriendly Fire. Shooting a hyena's shield deflects your bullets, dealing 60% of that damage to each enemy within 10 meters of the target. Is that exactly the same as the previous one that we've had? I know we've had that previously. I think it was called Unfriendly Fire, but did it do 60%? But it certainly looks like it's a returning one anyway. Next up, we got the hostile modifiers, and you can see here the first one is after receiving damage from enemies with Sporific, you become lethargic for 20 seconds. While lethargic, any damage you take has a 20% chance to disorientate you for 5 seconds. Killing an enemy with Sephoric removes lethargic. In the PvE DZ, any damage from enemies with Sephoric increases your toxicity by 1%, and that really does sound toxic. I'm not liking the sound of that one at all. Next up, we got Plague Doctor. Enemies with Plague Doctor and allies within 10 meters of them regenerate health at a rate of 10% per second. In the PvE DZ, your toxicity increases by 1% per second while you're in the same radius. And then this one is this one called Folie à Deux. I'm not sure. I'm not French. I've no idea. But enemies gain 2% damage per second after entering combat, up to a maximum of 50%. If they are not killed within 2 seconds of first receiving damage, they transfer to the closest ally on death. In the PvE DZ, enemies with this new hostile modifier also increase your toxicity by 10%. If you're within 20 meters of them when they die. Does not occur if an enemy is killed within 2 seconds of first receiving damage. So that is pretty rough as well, but we have got some very damaging modifiers, so we'll be interested to see how these play out. And this is the new PvE DZ, and as you can see, everything looks a little bit greener, especially around the edges of Leo's screen. And then obviously in the top left you can see the new toxic meter, and every bar that fills up you're going to get kind of disorientate effects added to you, and they only go away if you die or you exit the dark zone. Now Leo does go into combat. He was trying to get some of the new canisters to show us. Unfortunately he died and we didn't actually get to see it, so we'll get to see that in the PTS when it drops tomorrow. But you can see everything just looks a little bit off when he's kind of around and fighting. Everything's just very green and horrible. There you go, you saw one of the canisters, the munitions that was then on the floor, I think. So then obviously then you can use the new surge effect from collecting these as well. Is that the one that you killed to get it? There it is. Yep, you can see it. So yeah, pretty crazy, and yeah, pretty cool. One other thing that they did mention though was extraction, and they didn't really want extraction to be a bit of a dud in comparison to the high pressure situation that you are put under when you're extracting in the PvP DZ. What I am going to do, I'm just going to go back there a little bit. I'm going to pause that screen for what I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So what's going to happen is when you're in that DZ, the PvE DZ, the more people that are in it, the enemies will scale and they're going to get harder and harder. Essentially, if you're in there by yourself, they'll be easier. If the DZ is full with 12 people in, you're going to get much harder enemies, whether you're playing together or not. And that's really why they had to do that, because there is obviously the option for all 12 people to just do the same thing at the same time and face roll the entire DZ. So they had to make the enemies harder depending on how many people are in the DZ. And that is a little bit encouraging people to team up and do the landmarks and do all, you know, the looting and shooting together, because it is a PvE DZ. But it went a one step further because they didn't really want to make it too easy to extract. when you get to an extraction point, depending on how many people are in the DZ at the time, you're going to spawn hunters, and these hunters will be more difficult the more people are also in the DZ. So 4 hunters will spawn if there are 12 people in the DZ. I'm not so sure if that's from a group of 4 upwards or maybe a group of 5 that you'll get 4, but at some point you'll get 4, and then every person after that, it's going to be much more difficult to kill them because they're actually going to be tougher the more people that are in there. You can see there that the toxicity debuffs are just listed on the right hand side. So you can see between 0 and 99 there's no debuffs, but then between 100 and 200 we get minus 30% reload speed and minus 30% weapon handling. Between 200 and 300 essentially we get plus 25% damage taken and minus 30% Haspro. And then from 300 to 400 we get 100% threat generation, but then minus 10% movement speed. And then between 400 to 500, when taking damage, we get 20% disorientate chance for 5 seconds. So yeah, pretty toxic effects there that we're going to be able to get. And I think that's probably pretty important that we get the balance right when testing this, that the actual global modifiers are enough to combat this and actually make it a fun experience rather than one that's just a bit of a slog. Next up, Leo started to talk about the PvP revamp that is coming to the game. This is going to be a multi-phase revamp. This is phase 1, and they've basically made 350 changes of talents across all of the gear in the game to try and balance the gear in the PvP sections of the game. Conflict, Dark Zone. All these changes will take effect there. They did say skills and all other things that are related, so attributes are going to be in further phases, so don't get your hopes up about that. This is literally just gear. I think Alex said actually it was close to 400 changes, which is pretty crazy. But some immediate changes that they've made as well as that is, for now they have completely disabled the Tinkerer in PvP. That no longer will work, so no more Tinkerer hacking in PvP. And they've also changed Determined to work as Perfect Determined. So if you didn't know, Perfect Determined actually works correctly as intended. Regular Determined doesn't, and therefore you can chain it over and over again. And basically they've changed Determined to work the same as the Perfect version in just PvP. Leo did flash a bunch of pages a bunch of times. I can't remember how many changes he said there was. I think he said there was something about 20 different pages or maybe 30 different pages of PvP changes. They're all going to be in the patch notes tomorrow. That's probably not going to be something that I'm going to go over. I think it would probably take a lifetime to go over them, but we'll certainly take a look and see if we can pick out any juicy ones. And then finally, they talked about the new gear and the Caduceus from Division 1. Now, they said the numbers on this have only just been put into the game today, so these numbers might not be finalized. But as you can see, it looks like a Scar variant that we're going to get in the game. And we get to see the talent as well, which is pretty crazy. Crits will heal your team for 1.5%, which... yeah, sounds pretty crazy. So we'll just pause that there. You can see here, critical hits repair you and your allies for 1.5% of the hits damage dealt. Now, I'm assuming this can probably stack across 4-man group, maybe even an 8-man group in a raid or an incursion. So yeah, this is going to be pretty juicy. I think this actually could be pretty good. I can't wait to try this out. The next thing they told us is that they've hidden the Climax exotic this time. It's not going to be in the PTS for us to test, so they're keeping that one a complete secret. Next, we got the 2 brand new named guns. The LMG is called Insult to Injury, as you can see here. I can't remember what it's an L86 by the looks of it. I don't often use that gun, but it comes with a brand new perfect talent, which is TBD. Now, that's not the real name. It's not going to be the actual name, but you can see here, amplifies weapon damage by 35% to confused enemies. And that's just along the lines of all the other talents that we've been getting every season. The shock ones, the fire ones, and, you know, and everything else that we get. And I think he scrolls down in just a second, and I think the other named gun was a rifle. Yeah, the Brain Break, which is an urban MDR that comes with the same perfect talent. Next up, we get another Ortiz gear set, Ortiz Refishery, which you can see gives skill efficiency and 60% repair skills. The 4-piece bonus says healing skills duration and range are decreased by 30%, but the healing efficiency is increased by 10%. Healing an ally with a skill will provide them with 10% hazard protection for 100 seconds, that looks at, and the cooldown per ally is 100 seconds. So yeah, a little bit janky there in the description at the end, so we'll have to see what actually that turns out to be. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the backpack and the chest versions of the talents, see what they increased, but then he moved on to the next brand set that we're getting that for the moment does not have a name, but this one is, I think, is going to be extremely popular. You can see it's got 18% repair skills, 20% skill haste, and 8% skill efficiency, but it's the perfect talents that are coming to the game that I think are going to matter the most. Now you can see the name of the chest piece, the Benefactor, and it's perfect empathic resolve, which I think is perfect for tier 10 escalation. Repairing an ally increases their total weapon and skill damage by 3 to 20% for 20 seconds and 1 to 15 for yourself. We've also got the backpack, which I think is pretty funny, called the Mama Badger. I'm not sure who came up with that name. That is pretty crazy. And then we're getting perfect safeguard, while at full armor increases total skill repair by 160% on the backpack. Next up, Backfire Hasbro users rejoice. We're getting the Nurse's knee pads. They're all red, but the talent is both you and your allies within 10 meters of you receive 40% Hasbro. That's a lot of Hasbro, and I can really see that these will end up being used. And that was it. So we'll deep dive into the patch notes when they finally do go live. I think tomorrow. You can download the PTS now, but that's going to be it for the video. Don't forget to check out all of the PTS videos that I will release this weekend. It looks like it's going to be a huge PTS, so there will probably be many. Hit that bell so you're notified when they go live. You'll see me live on Twitch because we've got Twitch drops. I'll be live on Twitch later today and tomorrow, so do tune in for that. Come and ask me some questions. Let's talk PTS while we wait for it to go live. And as always, agents, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.